We've been to all four corners of Britain in our quest to interview the great and good of entertainment. Comics, actors, writers, politicians, singers, dancers and choreographers. It doesn't matter who they are. They've all given me their own take on the world they live in and have, in their own way, helped to define what makes Britain great. So join me and my assistants as we get another insight into the marvellous and enigmatic world of showbiz here on Beyond the Title.
Brian, and let's start with a question that Josh has written for you. Of course, one of the many fascinating things about your path to success is that you were a member of Joan Littlewood's theatrical company. Indeed. Why do you think she was responsible for the careers of so many of our best loved performers? And is it right that you were forced to learn lines in isolation?
I'll take the second part first. I don't remember that. We learnt the lines the best way we could, always. Right. But Joan's approach to work, in fact, as I was concerned, and indeed I think the general public, was unique. She didn't take obvious, shall I say, trained actors. She wasn't altogether happy with people who'd gone through academies of training. She liked, excuse me, she liked to take people almost off the street that had talent, and she wanted people who would look real and behaved real on stage. Not at the time, which was popular in a grand manner. So if we did Shakespeare as if the people that were alive today. We didn't do them in modern dress necessarily, but it was in a language that was totally acceptable to a public to understand without changing anything, and also shall I say, a rapport with an audience. She always wanted, in later years, she said, we want to have a party. Every night is a party. And remember, every night is a different party. So if we started to repeat anything that we'd done before, she said, no, I've seen that. It's old hat and it's boring. and she'd make us sort of throw it away, although we'd had to use the same words again. But she'd keep, and when we did a show which was extremely important at the time, Oh, What a Lovely War, she worked on it with us to keep it fresh every night.
Should I say about? Yes. Can I say about learning lines? Did she liked a lot of you to do
improvisation? Yes, she liked us to improvise. Indeed, yes. Around a scene, for instance, if it was a piece of history or something of that nature, she'd make us improvise, put the books down, and improvise the what we felt to be the quality and the meaning of the scene. And she wouldn't. One of the important things, when we first sat round for the read-through, and the first read-through of the play, whatever it was, she would not cast. She would not say who she had in mind for the roles. And so we would all play, and during the early rehearsals, she'd throw it around and say, come on, Brian, what do you think? What do you think Hamlet's thinking about now at this point? And so she never made an actor feel that, I've got to think about what I'm going to do. How am I going to play this part? No, none of that. She concentrated on the reading of the understanding of the play.
Okay, brilliant. So, Linda, then let's go back to the beginning for you now. Did you always want to go into show business? And if so, who were your heroes growing up?
Oh, that's interesting. Oh, I grew up in a show business family. So it was a sort of, I was actually was dyslexic as a child. So it was really it was going to happen because I grew up there. I was surrounded by show business people. My father was comedy magician, puppeteer, Punch and Judy man, band leader, red coat at Butlin. So it was always there in the family. My first job was in the back of a Punch and Judy show, passing up the puppets. So I was about 3 or 4 at the time. So
you had your hand up all those young ladies' skirts.
So it was sort of it was sort of had to be really. My heroes were always in our front room drinking late at night with my father. So our front room was always full of comics, and I grew up with people like Ted Rogers, Tommy Cooper, Les Dawson, Kenny Connor, just loads and loads of people who became very famous.
Yeah.
So I don't know that I had any heroes. I do remember being in love with David Soul when I was a teenager, with Starsky and Hutch. It was my first big major crush.
And so your film CV reads like a history of vintage British comedy. In 1974, you had a cameo alongside Jim Dale in the great Spike Milligan's Adolf Hitler, My Part in His Downfall. What are your memories of working on such a cult classic?
Oh, well, Jim was lovely to work with. We had great fun, very giggly, lovely company. We just had a very, very fun time. That was a very fun film.
Yeah. Okay. So, did you read the book? Josh said.
No. Should have done. If it had
No.
been now, I would have done. No, not the actress. No, I was too busy doing other things. No, I didn't.
Fair enough.
But I would now because I'm grown up and more disciplined and sensible.
Yeah.
And also because I write books and
Yeah.
I know how important it is for people to read them.
Yeah. So, Brian, then, how is it fair to say that your sort of TV debut was in Dixon of Dock Green?
I'm not absolutely sure. You're going back so far. It could quite well be. I sometimes look at a CV that you can now obtain, like on the television, on the social media, and I thought, I wasn't in that. Surely was I did that, and I saw something last week on Channel 81. Which is Renowned Films, bless them. And I thought after about 10 minutes, I thought, I know that guy. Yeah, he's very, and it was me. And it was so long ago. But Dixon of Dock Green, yes, you're probably right, because I do remember working with Jack Warner, wasn't it?
Mm.
Yeah. And Rita Webb was in it, indeed. So, yes, you could be right. I'm not sure in my mind whether it was the first, but it probably is, yeah. God,
would you sort of say that was a bit of like a kind of a testing ground for actors, shows like that?
It went on for a long time though, didn't it? I mean, I did one, and I think it was 1974 I did mine.
Yes.
So it did go on, and everybody loved Jack Warner, I think.
Well, remember, in those days, there was only BBC One. That was all. That was the first. Then they became ITV, and then BBC Two. So at the maximum, there was 3 channels, and of course it went off round about midnight. It wasn't all day. It wasn't 24/7. No. And so when those jobs came up, we were very pleased because they paid a little bit more money than you could earn in the theatre. It was a great help in that respect. But there were quite a lot of snobbish attitude towards from certain actors, especially at the time, very established actors said, oh, no, I don't do television. No, I'm an actor. I'm a proper actor on the stage.
Particularly for commercials.
Well, they did eventually. They didn't do commercials even.
No.
They thought
until Laurence Olivier did one.
Laurence Olivier did a commercial for Olivier cigarettes.
Yeah, and that was it. Everybody then
opened the floodgates, and everybody else decided they could do it. And
also, they liked the money. They could holiday abroad.
Yeah. Television was a great help to. In particular, a young actor starting out because of the financial, improvement on wages and things like that.
Sad to miss out on rep, though, I think, for an actor, because I think that's where we all cut our teeth, doing a different play every week.
Yes.
And some that you just were wrongly cast for, and you had to find your way through, and you knew on Saturday that you could throw your costume in the bin and it was the end of it because you'd hashed it up, and that Monday you had a terrific part in something you were perfectly right for. But I think that's how you learnt to be a good actor.
I think if you were starting out around about the time, as you said, Dixon of Dock Green, young actors coming out of drama school or wherever, or not even drama school, they expected to be working and hopefully in the theatre. And the ambition would be to try and be in the West End, which would get you more notice and also improve your salary possibly. But you didn't really think in terms of being a television so-called star, because it wasn't in everybody's home. Not everybody had a television set. And I remember the first one we had was about the size of a postcard screen. And about five people in the family, can you imagine, all grouped round a postcard? Well, a bit like we're doing now, really. And all desperate, but the picture wouldn't have been as good as you got.
Black and white.
Yeah, black and white, yeah.
So can we talk a little bit about Man About the House now? Your role as George Roper, Josh thinks in 1973-ish?
Yes, absolutely right. Yeah.
What was your first impression of that role?
Well, first of all, obviously as an actor, when you get a script and you think you can play it, you're excited and think, oh yes, this would be good. But you can't think too far ahead of that. And this was going to be a pilot, and I liked the role. I didn't know anybody else in it until I was, no, wait a minute, and until somebody suggested, the writers, I had done an episode of All Cock and Gander, which had Richard O'Sullivan in it, so I did know him. And when I did that, apparently they were so pleased with what I did that they put me forward as the name, as an actor for the role of George. They didn't at the time choose who might be Mildred. And it was the director of the piece who happened to know Eutha. Now, nobody knew that Eutha and Brian knew each other. And I didn't know until I was told Eutha. I was overjoyed, and Eutha said that so was she. And so we came together, and it was a very happy marriage, as it were, because we got on so well. We already had worked together at Stratford East.
Yeah. How long did it take sort of into the series for you to realise that those two characters between yourself and Eutha were going to be...
Oh, no, we didn't know they were going to grow. But what we did think when we first did the episode in front of, as they did in those days, in front of a live audience, and that we thought it had gone very well and it had a good chance of success. And with the three youngsters in particular, it was quite a daring plot, really, for its time. The idea of a young male sharing with two birds. And although there was a lot of talk about naughties, naughties really went on. And it was more innuendo. It wasn't so explicit as television has become today. And it was full of, I thought, full of charm. And the audience loved it. And the characters of George and Mildred seemed to grow and grow. They were only initially meant to be in say 2 scenes in part 1 and then 2 scenes in part 2. But they got a great response from an audience and letters that came in, and it was decided by the powers to be that they would give it a run. And they said to us about in the 3rd year, you do realise there's a lot of mileage to be got out of these 2 characters. Knowing old actors of about 38 or something like that, we said, oh, yes, we'll believe that when it happens. But of course it did. And before we knew where we were, Man About the House had come to its little end, and we started on George and Mildred a few months later. And the rest is, as they say, history.
Yeah. Can we talk about Carry On now? Linda, maybe any memories that you've got of Carry On England?
It was hot. We were in the army uniforms, and it was 1976, and I remember that because that was the hottest summer ever, wasn't it? And we were in heavy army uniforms. 6 weeks, 7 in the morning till 7 at night, no let up. I think I was private tailor, wasn't I, with 2 or 3 or 4 lines of lucky. You know what? I wanted so badly to work with the Carry On team. Yeah. Having said that, they weren't in that, but we didn't really have any. We had lovely Kenny Connor and Peter Butterworth and a couple of them, but it wasn't the original carry-ons that I would love to have been with. I had done Carry On Christmas, I think it's Carry On Again Christmas for Alan Tarrant at Thames, with Sid James. I played an island girl, and all I'd had to say, and that was Happy Christmas. But I was so thrilled to be working with the Carry On team there. And then they brought me back for Carry On England. Well, then that was about 4 or 5 years later. So it was just, I mean, the carry-ons are worldwide. I still get letters from people that say, we're carry-on collectors from all over the world, really. And although I hardly had anything to do, a couple of lines here and there, I'm 6 weeks in a really, really hot summer. I'm thrilled that I've got a carry-on stamp on my name. I really am thrilled.
In terms of Pinewood, then, as sort of like an entity, how important do you think Pinewood was to Britain's film output in the 60s and 70s? It
was massive, wasn't it? Because we had all the bonds. I was always in the sort of 70s and I think more like the 80s. God knows, I must have done 50 commercials in a year. I would just suddenly got the right face for commercials. I was always a barmaid or a something or other, and if it was a comedy commercial, I'd often score. And we made a lot of them at Pinewood, so I spent a lot of time at Pinewood Studios, and it's the basis of British film history, and we must never lose it.
Yeah,
it's a museum in its own time.
Yeah, excellent. So go back to your career, Brian. In 1985, again, we think you appeared on Alan Plater's On Your Way, Riley.
Oh, yes.
Josh said he was extremely lucky to meet Alan, and he was wondering how you felt working alongside him.
With Alan.
Alan Plater.
Yeah. I'd met Alan quite some years before, because he'd written quite a number of good things, series and what have you. It just by a chance, I said to my agent, I've got an idea about Old Mother Riley, about Arthur Lucan and his daughter Kitty. I wonder if it's of any use, because I was always encouraged to, I used to impersonate them. I actually saw them, I'm that old. And my agent put it out, and eventually ended up in the hands of Alan Plater. But I was on tour doing a play, and when I got to my digs up in Hull, I was staying at a very nice, charming woman, and she said, I've got a friend who's going to be calling in. He's in the business. He exercises his dogs, and he stops halfway because I give him a nice cup of tea. And who should it be but Alan Plater? And of course, we sort of fell into each other's arms. We didn't know each other that well, but he said, it's very interesting. He said, I've got a letter from Stratford East, the old theatre workshop run by Philip Headley, who are suggesting that not me, that there was an idea to do a play about Arthur Lucan, Old Mother Riley. And I let him ramble on until eventually I said, yes, that's my idea. And he said, oh, that's cosmic. And he showed me where Arthur had been buried, in the local cemetery. And he said, I've been dying to do a play about a double act. And he said, this came at just the right time. So I was very happy that he was going to do it. And of course, he produced, I thought, an amazing backstage and front stage, in which I myself and Maureen Lipman, who was chosen to be Kitty, and that we did this extraordinary piece that revealed something, but we didn't quite know how it would go, because remember, it was about variety, and variety sadly had died, particularly as television developed. And but it was very successful. And who am I thinking of? The American composer. Give me a clue, somebody. American composer, very famous, still with us, doing Sweeney Todd and all that. Anybody hold up their hand? With American.
Yes.
He's done so many shows in recent years. So why do these things go out of our heads?
Why do they? I know who
you know who I mean.
Yeah, I do.
You remember the musical Sweeney Todd?
Yes. He's written everything.
Josh, have you got an idea?
No.
What was it? It'll come to us all in a minute. We'll hold on. Anyway, the short story is that he turned up. Apparently, we didn't meet him at all, and he saw the play. It was a straight play version of Sweet. Oh no, what am I talking about? I've rambled on from Old Mother Riley to doing something. I'm sorry about that. That's me rambling. That bit's talking about Sweeney Todd, which was a bit later. But Old Mother Riley did exceedingly well, and
you were nominated for a BAFTA.
I was nominated for a BAFTA. Yes. So I'll give you an impersonation, but I haven't got room here.
Josh, of course, wanted to ask you about Last of the Summer Wine as well. Passage for great British comedy actors. How was it to share the screen with so many of your comedy?
Well, by that time, I had worked with most of the actors at some point or other, some longer than others. We certainly know I knew all of them. And it was just a pleasure. I only went up to do one episode, which seemed to be built for me. He wasn't a George character. Quite often one used to get scripts and they were sort of pale versions of a dear old George. But this one was different. I loved the show. It was a gentle comedy with splendid comic actors.
Can you see that?
Yeah.
That's Brian. That's my favourite picture of him. That was in Last of Summer Wine. What were you playing?
A crow.
A crow, not a blackbird.
With Robert Fife.
And I loved it, so I had it framed. And everybody has a what's it? What am I thinking of?
Our memories do too.
What am I thinking of?
I have no idea, madam.
Yes, you do.
This is turned into a guessing game. I can't remember.
He sits by my side when I'm working, when I'm writing my novels.
Oh, it's a muse, is it?
He's my muse.
What one of your muse?
He's my amuse.
It was a great. I was only just about young enough to do some of the stunts. I remember doing, I used to have to jump off the walls and fall into the water, and so on. And eventually, I said to Alan J.W. Bell, who directed it, I said, "Yeah, Dave, listen, it's all very well, Sondheim. That's the name of that composer I was trying to think of.
Sondheim.
And Sondheim. Here we are." Meanwhile, back at the branch, and I was jumping off a wall, and I said, "It's all very well, I said, doing all this, but I'm an old age pensioner." And he looked at Frank and Peter Sallis. He said, "Yes, but you're not as old as them." And I said, "No, but I'm never going to be as old as them if I keep jumping off walls." And we were asked to do lots of different things, and they were a challenge. But it was a very nice. I suddenly thought, as it turned into a series for me, what a pleasure, and to be doing in your later years a series that's popular with so many other splendid actors. And I was very saddened when it ended.
Linda, you touched on it a little bit there. Just wanted to ask you about your writing, because of course you're alongside acting, you're also a best-selling novelist. How did you get into writing, and was there any correlation between working as an actor and then going into writing?
Well, I always wrote. As I said, I think I said earlier, I was dyslexic when I was at school. I went to a Catholic convent, and they didn't really understand dyslexia. And I was a very, I became a very wild child because I just, I could only do my alphabet backwards. I could only go Z, Y, X, W, V, U, blah, blah, blah. And I could only write starting at the right-hand side, going left and going like that. So, and everybody just thought I was weird. And so I rebelled as a child. I became very wild, but I always wrote. I wrote all the time diaries, funny, silly poems. The cat sat on the mat. That's where he sat on the mat. I think that was my very first entry into the literary
Poet
world.
laureate.
Yes. I think I was about 4 when I did that. So, and it sort of went from there. And I used to write started to write short stories, and I wrote a few novels which were pretty dire, and hid them as you do. There are probably loads of them around now somewhere. And then I wrote. Somebody said to me, write about what you know. So I wrote I decided to write a book backstage in a pantomime, and I mean I've done loads and loads and loads of pantomimes. And often wanted to kill people I've worked with, to be perfectly honest. When you're away at Christmas and you're cold and theatre's awful, and you don't get on with people, it's pretty hard. And your best friends are the Shetland ponies. I thought, well, maybe I'll write a novel set backstage, and I can kill everyone and dress them all up. But I thought the novel was awful, so I got rid of it. But Brian saved it. He sent it into a competition.
You were going to recycle it. You went across the road and put it in a bin.
Recycle bin.
And I had enjoyed reading it very much until I went over and rescued it.
And there was a competition, a worldwide competition.
Yeah. So it's down to me, really.
Everything's down to you, Dan. So off it went to this competition. They're looking for new crime authors, and they took 6 of us. They took 6 out of however many thousand they had, and I was one of the 6. And then they said they were choosing, was it 2, 3? I can't remember, for editorial contracts. I got one, and I got published. And they then gave me a 2-book contract. So I went, oh my God, I've got to write another crime. I didn't know I was a crime author then, and I had no idea. And my second book terrified me, but
it terrified me when I read it as well.
But funny enough, it became a pick of the year in the Observer, and I just suddenly thought, my God, I don't know what I'm doing, and I'm suddenly getting all this. But I have gone on to sort of have a vague idea about what and why I want to write. And my latest book, which is called The Terror Within, is a hostage situation.
Oh, that's great.
It's receiving fantastic reviews, and everybody, all the reviews are saying how filmic it is. So I'm praying somebody will pick it up and film it.
Yeah.
The thing is, when you're an actress, you do see things through a camera. So your stories are through a camera because that's who you are. That's what I grew up with. So anybody out there with
it really is great. I know people would say, oh, you would say that stuff, but maybe they would, but never mind. In my mind, it really is. It's exhilarating. I really didn't put it down. I read from cover to cover, and I'm a very slow reader, I can tell you. But it was so exciting. And it's relevant too, because it's about today, without giving anything away. It's a hostage situation, which we know goes on quite a lot, unfortunately. But I can see many parts in it. None for me.
Yeah, there is one you can say.
It's an old codger. It would really make a sort of mini series, or even a one-off, I suppose.
Yeah.
But I think that it's a shining example. I mean, I am proud of it, and I'm actually proud of all my work. Well, I am proud of everything I've done. I think one has to be proud now. But the more you do, the more you realise about how to do it. And so if there are writers, I would say, if I'm talking to any writers, just keep writing, because it's the only way a writer can learn is to keep writing. And then you find yourself.
Would you want to be involved in writing the screenplay, Josh said, or would you hand it over?
Is that me?
No,
No,
me.
you.
In writing it, either.
Yeah.
I mean, I could. I obviously I can't. I could write script because if somebody asked me, because I know the story and because I know how script is written. But on the other hand, I'd be just as happy for somebody to take it. I mean, I know loads of authors whose work's gone onto television and other writers have taken it over, and it's not how they originally wrote it, but they don't care because they've sold it and they've got bought a house or two houses. You know, it's nice.
And cast people get nervous if they know the writers around.
Yeah, I know loads of writers that are banned from the set.
Yeah.
The only thing in the radio is if you've seen my CV, I had a year on BBC Radio 4 drama rep, playing all different parts, and the writer is part of, you know, he sits in the box with the producer and he does give notes. It's the only time in my life that I've known a writer be allowed in a rehearsal room or production room. But I think it's right. They know what they're doing. They know how the character should be moving along.
That's it. So we'd like to ask both of you, looking back over your careers, what would you say your proudest achievement is?
Meeting me.
Still to come.
Meeting me.
It's in my career.
We met playing husband and wife in a play. So we met we were married before we were married, really, weren't we?
Yes, everybody thought we used to row quite a lot.
Yes, we squabbled.
We
squabbled.
And everybody said, "Are you sure you're not married?"
So we thought we may as well get married.
But if you mean in particular, sort of acting-wise, it's hard to know. If the thing that you're enjoying at the time and it's giving pleasure as well to part, that's the one that you think of in more recent time as being, that was some achievement. What probably the biggest, it was doing Oh What a Lovely War in Paris. And it was our first night and the theatre was totally packed. Theatre Workshop was very welcome in Paris, its work and everything about it. And Lovely War was obviously very relevant to them as well. And we learned one or two songs in French. That was the best we could do. And the ticker tape, which went on giving information behind us, was obviously in French. But the rest of the evening we performed as we had done at Stratford and at the Wyndhams. And this 2,000 audience, they laughed in the right places. There was a lot of hush and a lot of things. And at the very end, as we sang a song in French, there was the sound of machine guns. And as we were dressed as clowns, as well as being different soldiers, we sort of fell over, not onto the ground. We just like the sand had run out of the dummy, and it just went flop. And suddenly there was a silence, and then it was followed by bang, 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 like machine guns. And I think Murray Melwood was next to me, and he said, "What's happening?" And I said, "I think they're shooting us." And he said, "It can't be that bad." We slowly rose, sang this song, and the audience threw everything that they could throw. They had threw programs, chocolates, and various other things, and cheered and cheered and cheered, because the piece had meant so much to them. And the effect of that night has forever lasted in my memory. And I thought, that is what theatre can do. And to have been a part of it will hopefully always stay there. So although it's not just my achievement, it was a achievement and a wonderful one to be in.
Wonderful play. I think my greatest height was playing Marilyn Monroe. I played Marilyn Monroe in the play The Legend. Again, we toured, and it received fabulous. We had a few standing ovations, but mainly because I loved Marilyn and everything she stood for, and I felt I could do her justice by telling her story. And it was fabulous, written by David Butler, and I was very, very proud of being able to do that. And again, on the last night, I was standing in front, and the cast stood behind me, and when I bowed to the audience when I turned around, and they were all clapping and bowing to me, and that was a big thing to get from your peers.
I just have a thought. You know what we could do? Get somebody to write a play called Marilyn Monroe Meets Old Mother Riley. There you are. We could still do that, couldn't we?
Don't ask me to write it.
And somebody will say, who? Both are. Marilyn Monroe is still a famous icon.
Yeah. The last question, or question we always finish on, what's next? What's next for you two? Have you got anything coming up, or?
I'm just finishing my next book.
Yeah.
There is no work out there, so nobody is working in our industry. Nobody. They're all threatening to come back in August or October. The soaps are coming back. I think early next month. Coronation Street started, isn't it? But there's nothing to come back to at the moment, and I don't think our industry is going to be up and running until January, according to everybody that I've spoken to within my agency. My agent's agency, I should say. So we can't have anything planned.
No.
I mean, I do lots of after lunch talks and stuff, but
you can write. You see, you can.
Yes, I just keep writing.
You're right. You can.
But there just is nothing out there, and we must stay safe. We really must stay safe.
My next thing is supper.
Yeah. But can I just say, are you in the Isle of Wight now?
Yes.
That's where we're going to be.
We're coming
over. We love it. It's our favourite place.
You know, that's where I was born.
Really?
The Isle of Wight. Yeah.
You've got to do that, apparently.
Ventnor.
Because you know John, don't you? John Hannam.
Yeah, John, yeah.
Yeah, of course. Ventnor, Isle of Wight. And then my parents and we moved to the mainland, to Portsmouth, when I was in my infancy, as it were, and then eventually moved to London. So it is really
and that's
home.
where my dad had his Punch and Judy show when he was on Bembridge on the holiday camp. So my first job was handing out the puppets in Bembridge. So we've got a big emotional tie to the Isle of Wight.
We return every year.
Yeah.
With our dog.
And we hope we're going to be able to return this year.
Okay, guys, thanks very much. We'll let you get to your supper. We'll go now.
Thank you.
Our pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you
both.
Send our love to the Isle of Wight. We'll see you soon.
Yeah.
God bless.
Thank
God
you.
bless.